Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flick Show. My name is Chris Wong. A little bit stuffed up, so if you can't really hear me well, I apologize. Getting over this cold, trying very hard. But there's a couple things that dropped today about the DC Extended Universe. First of all, it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan on Flashpoint. Says playing Batman would be the thrill of a lifetime. Now, this is coming from Heroic Hollywood as their article today. Apparently, during the production of Watchmen, he had a conversation with Snyder about playing Batman. He said this: "Look, I'm not going to lie. Zack Snyder and I talked about doing Batman together when we did Watchmen," Morgan revealed. "I think it was both he and I's favorite character and favorite story." And then after long in being in development, DC is finally moving forward on with the Flash film. Game Night directors John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein are confirmed to direct the project from a script written by King Arthur Legend of the Sword scribe Joby Harold. While a murderous Batman wouldn't be anything new in DC's current cinematic universe, Morgan dished on the Flashpoint version of the character, which he thinks it's the coolest interpretation of the hero there is. And what I know about the Flashpoint Batman is, for me, I think he is not only the darkest of the Batman, but the coolest. And I love his whole storyline and who he is and tortured soul of it all, Morgan talked about. But he was tight-lipped on whether or not he would get the chance to don the cape and cowl, only confirming how much the opportunity would mean to him. He said this: "We'll see. I mean, look, DC is DC and they'll figure out what they're going to do next, but I'm highly aware of the character. I will say that. I'm highly aware of the character, and it would probably be a thrill of a lifetime to put on the bat suit." So that is his comment about being Batman, and we kind of saw that coming a little bit. When we saw Batman v Superman, we saw Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing as Thomas Wayne. You were kind of like, he'd be pretty much a perfect Batman for Flashpoint, right? That whole scenario looked like that's what Zack Snyder's intended. And you gotta believe that Zack Snyder kind of had that intention from before. Probably during that time, DC Studios, DC Films had a Flashpoint in mind, and that's why this current slate's called Flashpoint. I think they're going to change it to the Flash, but if they are doing Flashpoint and Jeffrey Dean Morgan being Batman, yes, that would be perfect. I would totally love that. But it'll be so much of a challenge and so interesting to see these game night directors able to do a serious movie like Flashpoint, coming off from doing comedies and writing a lighthearted movie such as Spider-Man Homecoming. So it's been very interesting on what's going to happen there. Both Ezra Miller and Kiersey Clemons are committed to star as the titular hero and his love interest Iris West in Flashpoint, which will also feature an appearance by Wonder Woman, as Gal Gadot has been confirmed for the Flash's standalone film. So that was back then. We're not sure if that's still the case now that the directors of Game Night are involved, so they're just adding that into it. So we'll see. I mean, we'll definitely see what's here, but at least Jeffrey Dean Morgan is up to the challenge of being Batman in that Flashpoint movie. So let's see if anybody else shows up. Let's see if there's any more news for WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con. So that's that. Now, another article came out, and this is more of like an editorial, unless this person has a lot of sources. This is from Mario Robles. He put on his Revenge of the Fans website about this. The title is "Snyder Releases Images of Cut Justice League Scenes, and I Tell You Why They Were Cut." So he just wants to go into interpreting kind of why the Justice League scenes were cut, and this is from the images that Zack Snyder had posted on Vero, for instance, right? It's not to say that he believes they should be cut. He just believes this is why the studio cut them. But it's very interesting to hear what he had to say, and very interesting to hear from what his side, if he knew anything. Now, he is a DJ, and that's his main job, but he has some sources on the inside that can actually get to things. So very interesting. But he said that the Lois and Ma scene, right? The Lois and Martha Kent, their exchange was a little bit more mournful, a little bit more sad, more depressing, as you will, because it goes into how those two characters lost a great love in their life, and that is very true. I mean, that's something that was kind of missing from the movie that we got. We kind of got hints of it, but not as much, right? Not as much. So all of this sadness and darkness was likely meant to provide a contrast for when Superman inevitably returns from the dead. It would give his death some depth, and it would make his return something to celebrate. But somewhere along the way, it was decided that Snyder hadn't quite stuck the landing. As some of his harsher critics would note, Snyder is great at coming up with deep, heady ideas, but not necessarily the best at executing them in a satisfying way. In this case, Warner Brothers didn't care for the way Superman's arc played out. They didn't think he pulled it off, judging on several reports that Superman's original turn was less than triumphant, and that the character would occupy a gray area for a while, possibly almost being lured into joining Steppenwolf and Darkseid. It just made for another bummer Superman, and that's not something Warner Brothers wanted to give audiences after Batman v Superman. So they simplified the world in this array angle. They allowed Adams acting to convey her sadness in subtler instances, and they made Superman's return far more overtly heroic, only having him exist in that gray area for a couple of minutes before going to the light and becoming the recognizable savior of old by the time he enters the fray to stop Steppenwolf. In short, their lack of satisfaction in Snyder's execution of Superman's return arc explains why the Lois and Ma scene was cut. It was too heavy and devoid of the kind of joy they want Superman to represent. Personally, I was really touched by Justice League's final trailer, which played up Lois' sense of loss, and I would have loved more time to explore what Superman's death meant to Lois and Ma. I would have also liked seeing a more palpable sense of danger with Superman gone, leading to villains wreaking havoc, and Wonder Woman and Batman being overwhelmed and needing to create a team of heroes to turn the tide. So, with that sense in mind, yeah, I agree. I would have loved to see more of the heavy-handedness that the Warner Brothers didn't want. And we know that Jeff Johns came in. They wanted to show more hope and optimism. They kept it light. That was the problem. They kept it light. They showed a little bit at the beginning of a guy kicking some fruits or vegetables or whatever that was in the marketplace or in front of the market. And I had a little bit of that, but it was so little. It doesn't feel like the heaviness you should feel of a loss of Superman. And I really think there was more to that, right? And it was more heavier. It was darker until Superman shows up. So I really believe that it should have been more, because out of the light can only come out of darkness. Hope, the fulfilling part of hope could only come out of despair. By showing a greater amount of despair, a greater amount of darkness, with that little tinge of light at the hallway, it just seems more fulfilling. You just want to grab it because you want to see it. It's more impactful that way, and I think that's what's missing from its Justice League. It's generally light all throughout. You don't feel the sense of danger. You don't feel the sense of hopelessness, and so when Superman comes back, it's just not as triumphant as what could have been intended in the original Justice League. Of course, he goes on to about Barry and Arthur. Barry have more solo subplots, and you've seen that with Iris West, those cut scenes. Aquaman had a lot more with Vocal. Willem Dafoe's character, who's taken out, judging from a GameSpot last November, Aquaman, Jason Momoa said this: Vocals, his connection to Atlantis. I think what Zack Snyder and I did, we were kind of trying to establish that he was taken down there as a boy, and he was an outcast. He was a half-breed. He was built up as a young boy because he was fed all these ideas by Vocal, and he was the rightful king. And he gets down there and he's half-breed. He's impure, and I'm just made to feel like I'm this disease. But all that had to get cut because there was just enough time in this movie, and that's why we got like it was going to be like 3 hours. I would have watched 3+ hours, but same goes for Barry's arc. He had a lot more arc to it, and we all know Cyborg also had an arc to it, and a lot of things were cut out with Ray Fisher in it. So that was at first as well. But you got the feeling for Snyder here. You feel for Snyder here since he seems like a kid in a candy store when it comes to these DCU films. He's given this beautiful opportunity to tell stories about these iconic characters that he absolutely loves. It's clear to see what he wanted to load both BVS and Justice League. Just a lot of more stuff in it. He's got the opportunity to do these 3 movies. He wants to put everything he can possibly put in it, and he wanted to create this world on his own, and that's why he was kind of heading the whole thing. So you feel for him because a lot of that stuff was taken out. Kiersey Clemens, he explains here because she was cast by Rick Famuyiwa. So her material was going to set up his Flash movie, but when he walked away, it kind of made it pointless for her to be on there if she might not be Iris West after all, which is kind of dumb because in that sense, then why have Ezra Miller? Why have the other people, right? I mean, you could just put Kiersey Clemens in there, and then later on someone would have to pick her up, just like how Patty Jenkins had to pick up Gal Gadot, knowing that full well Zack Snyder chose her to be Wonder Woman. So I don't know, it could be, but that's a interesting what if. But judging from all this stuff, I like to say I understand why Warner Brothers wanted to cut because of Jeff Johns' interpretation of making it hopeful and optimistic and stuff. But it really slims it down. It just dumps it down by tremendously, and I would rather have all that heavy-handedness because another fan was like, being truthful. She was saying that, what if the movie comes out, the Snyder Cut actually does come out, and it's not that good. It's not that good. It's not to our expectations. I'm like, sure, that could happen, sure. But we will never know that until we actually see it, right? And then when we see it, at least, it will fit it will be consistent with the tone. It will be consistent with the flow. It will be consistent with the art style of Zack Snyder. It will be consistent, and you can actually finish up the trilogy. I can actually finally get my physical copy of Justice League and put it next to my physical copy of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and say, this is the true trilogy. This is it. This is what we get. So that's what we want, and that's all we care for, really, just to get the Snyder Cut so that we could fulfill his full vision, to see what he actually planned out altogether. Of course, all that what he wanted may not fit in the current DC Extended Universe future, but it would be cool to see that maybe as like an alternate to what's going to happen in the theaters from here on out, and whatever Jeff Johns is planning for the entire universe, or Walter Hamada, or what and whatnot. So, but that's what I want to say. It's a very good articles. I'm going to link down these 2 articles in the description. Jeffrey Dean Morgan talks about Batman, and Mario Robles, I'm sorry, of Revenge of the Fans, talking about why they cut those scenes out, which I desperately want to see put together again. And I think there's going to be a lot of fans out there who are going to get the physical copy. They're going to strip it, or the digital copy. They're doing it now. They're working hard and making the fan cut, and that'd be crazy awesome. And if the Snyder Cut comes out, at least you guys. At least maybe before then we'll get a taste of what it could have been, what should have been, just like how Superman 2, hopefully we'll wait 20 plus years until Superman 2, the Donner Cut, but we'll see. Clay Enos did come out and admitted that he is a friendship with Zack Snyder, but he knows nothing. He claims to know nothing. He has no clues or things. He just says to hope for the best, but he does not know if it's coming out and if there's anything going to happen on March 25th. So if nothing happens, don't give your hopes up. Just believe in it, as a lot of us want to believe in it, and one day, maybe one day, it will come out. let's just keep hoping. All right, guys. What do you guys think of all this stuff? Stuff in the news. Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Batman. Revenge of the Fans article. And then what do you guys think is going to happen at WonderCon? I mean, are you pretty still hopeful? And the physical copy, by the way, of the current Justice League comes out tomorrow, or by the time you hear this, or even after. I think it already came out. I'm not sure, but. It's going to be out, so let me know. Are you going to get the physical copy, or are you going to wait to see if there's another version out there that is out there looming in the distance? All right, guys, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.